Levi, you can just get out of here.
Recently, I was talking to Jake from Pulp Mortem, and he said to me, "Hey, Levi, you look like a man who begs for scraps of bread. You look like someone who's ready to accept someone else's cast-offs. You want some books?" I said, "Yes, I am a man who begs for scraps of bread, and I am a man who's ready to accept someone else's cast-offs. I would love your unwanted books." So he sent me a care package, and we're going to get into that. Top of the heap, we have Danger Planet. One strong man battling the galaxies of evil. Introducing Captain Future. Looks pretty cool. I don't know if this is Frazetta, but it looks Frazetta-like. Let's see what it says on the back. Danger Planet. 1 million years back in the swirling, shrouded past, evil ultra beings ruled the planet Rue. Oh, it's going to be that kind of book. Suddenly, unbelievably, they are alive again, threatening the universe with total destruction. Only one man dares challenge the evil ones. He is Captain Future, intergalactic agent of justice, whose identity is top secret, whose strength is ultimate. He sets out alone to stop the deathless menace creeping ever closer. First time in paperback. And depending on when it was originally published, there might be a reason. Anyway, it cost 60 cents, and that you may be getting it for a steal at that price. So we have Swordsman in the Sky. Great stories of interplanetary adventure, edited by Donald A. Walheim. And that is most definitely a Frank Frazetta cover. That's Frank Frazetta when he was doing mostly water paint. Not cheap, but cheaper water paint for different paperback covers. He was doing that mostly water paints. Most of the Frazetta water paints, I believe, were done in the early 1960s, but I'd have to double check that. Let's see. Swordsman in the Sky. The millions of readers who have discovered the works of Edgar Allan Poe. The millions of readers who have discovered the works of Edgar Rice Burroughs. The fascination of sword and wonder adventures on distant planets among exotic people have called forth an insistent demand for more. It is to meet this demand that this new anthology, Swordsman in the Sky, was created. I could have guessed that. Since the book exists, I would have assumed there was a market for it. Who have they got here? Here are adventure, peril, and marvel mixed by the master hands of Poul Anderson, Edward Hamilton, Leigh Brackett, Andre Norton, and Otis Holbert Klein. Those are 5 individuals I've never read a single book from. Maybe some short fiction, and it's difficult to remember all the short fiction I've read. But it looks like a swell time, but that's every Frazetta cover. So Nick knows what I'm talking about. Earth's Last Citadel by C.L. Moore and Henry Kuttner. Let's see. Earth's Last Citadel. Born from the 20th century by super science of a master being from an alien galaxy, 4 adventurers find themselves at Carcassilla, Earth's Last Citadel, 1 billion years from now. It is there that the mutated remnants of humanity are making their final stand against their dying planet's last monstrous creations, and the four from day must end that terrible deadlock. Here is a terrific science fiction novel of vivid color and brilliant scope, as could only have been written by such as C.L. Moore and Henry Kuttner, a novel to be compared favorably with the work of A. Merritt, C.S. Lewis, and Ray Bradbury. Okay, so if I understand correctly, C.L. Moore and Henry Kuttner were man and wife, and so after they were married, they would each work on part of a novel. So C.L. Moore would write the main bunch of a novel, and Henry Kuttner would come in and do minor edits and revisions, and they'd publish it either as C.L. Moore or Henry Kuttner. And then Henry Kuttner would write most of a novel, and C.L. Moore would come in with changes and revisions and all that, and they'd publish it either as a C.L. Moore or Henry Kuttner. So when you find their names on a book, either together or separately, there is a chance that the other one wrote the lion's share of the material. But there's also a pretty good chance that the name that's on the book wrote all of what's on the material. If I'm remembering correctly, it may be that C.L. Moore and Henry Kuttner have no association outside of writing this book, and I'm a complete idiot. Or it could be that I'm a complete idiot, and everything I said is true. There's a lot of options here. I remember C.L. Moore most fondly from the work she did on Jewel of Joinery. This World is Taboo by Murray Leinster. And it's got a waiting line of rocket ships, like you're standing in line at the DMV. Let's see what it says about land on Dara. Well, Dara is a pretty big man. You might be able to land on him. One might as well commit suicide. Yeah. Untouchable, like the Darns. That's what they'd call Calhoun if he broke the quarantine. And they'd wipe him out of sight, wipe him out on sight. But Dara needed him, and that was the kind of challenge this interstellar med serviceman would never dodge. Okay, I get it. It's a quarantine planet type book. You're gonna have. I'm gonna guess it's gonna be character. Similar in scope to Captain Kirk, except that he's a med student. So think kind of along the lines of. No, I know what it is. It's that Russian story I'm forgetting the name of about the young doctor. There's this book about a young Russian doctor that's told entirely in the second person. I've not read it myself, but I've heard a lot about it. And I'm gonna take a shot in the dark and say that's what this is like. But I'm probably lying to you. I had a joke that I cannot fathom how to actually represent the joke and make it funny, so I'll just tell you what it was. It was a play on the word taboo because that sounds like tattoo. And Tattoo is the name of the dwarf that was on Fantasy Island. So instead of Tattoo saying the plane, I was going to try and make him say the planet. But there's no way to make that work. So, yeah. And we're moving out of the science fiction stuff that Jake sent to me. And here is Tree Frog, or possibly Mission Tree Frog, I'm not sure. It's the ultimate espionage weapon. It's the unorthodox thriller with a heroine who is homely but sexy, and a hero who is reluctant but smart. It's a, quote, wild, ellipses, first rate, end quote, book of the month club. I don't know if that's necessarily the pull quote you want to put on your cover if you have to do that much editing to get to wild, ellipses, first rate. Anyways, by Martin Woodhouse. Tree Frog is charged with menace and high adventure. It races from an intelligence briefing session in London to a terrifying torture ordeal in the Austrian Alps. I almost said Australian Alps. That's a completely different type of book. That's not a tree frog. This is a tree frog. To a heart-thudding test flight above the Sahara. Tree Frog has an unlikely heroine. Red-haired Benny Abrams is not a beauty. She's just 150 pounds of surefire sex appeal. Tree Frog has an unconventional hero, Giles Yeoman. Tree Frog has an unconventional hero. Giles Yeoman is a scientist who knows he's passing wrong information to the other side. Information about a spy plane that makes the U-2 look like a Piper Cub. The critics have gone wild over Tree Frog. Never mind, I lied. There's more science fiction in this stack of stuff Jake sent to me. Beachhead Planet by Robert Moore Williams. So this cover looks like if Prince Valiant stole Conan the Barbarian's clothes and then stood on top of a cathedral. That's what I'm getting out of this one. He's doing the Batman brooding session on this Jade Dragon. He fought the invasion of the Brain Snatchers? Let's look at the back. The enslavers, from a far galaxy, the narcs have come. Yeah, it's always a narc, isn't it? Hungering for the tempting green planet called Earth. Yeah, it's always something tempting and green, ain't it? First they invaded the mind of the world's greatest scientist, Erasmus Brockner. Then they had him build them an impregnable fortress deep in the Nevada mountains. From this hidden lair went their human slaves, fanning out like a contagion over the globe. The narcs were ready for the final step in their monstrous design when a man named Valthor stumbled onto the truth and swore to defeat them or die. May not be a good time, but it looks like a fun time. Man, I was just really pulling your leg on that one. There's tons of science fiction stuff in here. Never mind. Invaders from Rigel by Fletcher Pratt. That looks like Lloyd Bridges if he were painted green and wore a fishbowl helmet. So it looks like Lloyd Bridges. A science fiction tale of a community that had miraculously changed to metal. Astronomers had observed the comet for some time and had predicted its course. It would collide with Earth. There was no hysteria. Scientists were apparently convinced that the results wouldn't be dangerous to life. But Murray Lee, that's the name of someone who should make instant cake mix. But Murray Lee woke up with a feeling of overpowering stiffness in every muscle. He turned over in bed and felt his left elbow, which seemed to be aching particularly, and received the shock of his life. The motion was attended by a creaking clang, and his elbow felt like a complex wheel. Why, he was metal all over! Okay, so I'm gonna guess that this mysterious comet is shooting the Earth full of radiation that is turning, if not all animal life, just all human life, into either just pure beings of metal, like statues, or it's turning everybody into cyborgs or automatons. Code 3 by James M. Fox. Let's see. Our squad car screeched to a stop, and the girl ran at us. The hood fired at her. We came out of the car, guns blazing. It was them or us. Detective Sergeant Jerry Long found the first redhead in bed. He wadded up her crumpled linen dress and her black lace underwear and threw them at her head. Now, not all of us would have done that, but you know. The story of a hard, decent cop who fought a corrupt machine, got tangled up with more women than he could handle. Yeah, the first one was too much for him to handle. Killer Subs, edited by Phil Hirsch. 9 True Stories of Undersea Warfare, edited by Phil Hirsch. The Clash of Combat, The Terror of the Deep, and the steel-nerved men who faced them both. So it's true-to-life submarine stories from World War II. I'm good for it. Caliber 50 by Robert Sheckley. There's the back cover. Beginning a great new series of international crime novels. Meet Stephen Dane, a new kind of detective. Like a hurricane on the horizon, trouble hung over the Caribbean. The word from the State Department was, call Stephen Dane. Now, I'm no expert on old pulp authors, but Robert Sheckley is ringing a lot of bells for science fiction, but I might just be confusing him with Robert Silverberg. So if anybody knows if Robert Sheckley wrote any science fiction, let me know what you know. Because this is just, it's setting off all kinds of alarm bells that I can't answer to. I don't know what the connection. Now we're going to move on to some of the assignment series that Jake sent me. 2 of these were sent to me by Jake. 2 of these I found at a library sale. And when you see the condition of all of them, you can probably guess which ones were which. Assignment, Black Viking, which, wasn't that a Super Friends character? The Chi-Coms make an odd alliance with a half-crazed genius to give Sam Durrell his most dangerous and bizarre case to date. All these are written by Edward S. Ahrens. Assignment, Sorrento Siren. He was a tramp with a title, a countess with a killer instinct. Between her and international incident stood CIA agent Sam Durrell. Assignment Peking. Or Peking. If you're Peking, someone's got to poke you in the eye. If you're Peking, you're a city in China. They gave him another man's face and sent him on the most terrifying mission of his life. The one and only Sam Durrell was now somebody else, his own worst enemy. Well, they shouldn't have given him that face. They should have given him a friendly face. Assignment Palermo. This looks like one of Nick's Women Running Away from Castles covers. A huge criminal network is insidiously turning into an apparatus for international espionage. CIA agent Sam Durrell had only one slender but lovely lead, a racketeer's willful mistress. They called themselves the Brothers of Night, and Sam Durrell knew that for years they had specialized in organized crime, women, numbers, horse parlors, the usual rackets that were out of the CIA's domain. Well, if they're after women, I reckon they do have numbers. So overall, that makes a lot. I want to thank Jake for sending all these books to me. He really didn't have to do that. So what does that mean for books by the foot? Well, the stack of these books is 6 3/8 inches high. Added to our shelf total, we moved the shelf total from 35 feet 9 9/16 inches to 36 feet 3 15/16 inches, just shy of the 4-inch mark. And hey, if maybe you want to beg Jake into sending you a box of books, you should join us on June 21st for the Elusive Exclusive Book Society, where we will be discussing The Destroyer number 33. The gentlemen over there have graciously invited me on as a guest spot to discuss this book. Be there or be square.
All right, Levi, you can stick around for that one.